personality and is a history filled with stories. Stories of the rise and fall of nations. Great nation builders rising to craft the documents that breathe life into various forms of government. Builders like Minos of Crete, Theseus of Athens, Romulus of Rome. And yet, America stands alone as a nation whose founding documents are enforced not by a dictator, not by a system of distant rulers, but by a nation of we the people. In these documents are truths whose lessons are built on thousands of years of experience. They go to the very foundation of our understanding of humanity, written as a promise for our future, representing the sacrifice and the belief of millions who have come before us and who still uphold their truths today. On these pages, we the people find our identity. We discover liberty, the promise of liberty that formed our nation, and the liberty that is the gift of divine providence to all mankind. This is the America of our founding fathers. This is the America that is our inheritance to keep.
I wanted to start out tonight by telling a story. Has anybody ever been on a long road trip? Okay, good. Okay, here we go. I had a road trip growing up as a child that I was probably about 7 or 8 years old at the time when this happened. And I can remember it was very late at night. My father was driving. We were in an old, like a Winnebago. It was a station wagon. The station wagon. It really did feel like the summer vacation, like a Chevy Chase nightmare for us every time we left the house to go on a vacation like this. And we're going for 5 or 6 hours. We were coming back from Valdosta, where a lot of my family lives, and we were going to coming to the northern part of the state. It's about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock in the morning, and I am sleeping on the back. Remember, I'm about 8 years old. I'm sleeping in the back. Anybody remember the way the station wagons were put together? You have the fold-over seat that doesn't always fold over so well, and you have this little area in between the back of the seat and the back of the back, and you stack all of the suitcases miles high, right? Well, they thought it would be great. Joel wouldn't move or jostle around too much if we shove him in between the back of the seat and the suitcases that we piled a mile high. And so we're carting down the road about the time we run headlong into God and nature and a white-tailed deer that decided he would run out in the middle of the road. Picture this, I'm 8 years old, it's 1 o'clock in the morning, I am fast asleep thinking about nothing else, and I get buried alive by an avalanche of suitcases. The last thing they heard was a shriek. They heard very little of anything else after that, and they thought they lost me for good. But the interesting thing about that story is that it is such a parallel of what we're seeing right now. We are seeing an avalanche of bad policy ideas. And lest you think it's coming from one side of the aisle, what we've known for the last few years is that there's plenty of blame to go around. I mean, if you think about it, we're looking at, the president had his health care speech last night. We're trying to pass a $1 trillion health care legislation right now that most of the experts are saying will pretty much eradicate your private health care coverage by the first or second quarter of 2010. That's one thing going down the pipe. The Congressional Budget Office just released last week that we are, and this is one of the reasons why the congressionally mandated report that the executive branch has to release on the budget through the end of the year, they're delaying it. If anybody has an idea right now, we're expected to have a $1.7 trillion deficit, or trillion dollar budget, excuse me, for 2009. Well, 2010 rather. It's looking like it's going to be closer to $3 trillion in excess of. Folks, that is unprecedented in our nation's history, quite frankly, in world history. We learned from Goldman Sachs just last week, they were pleased to report that by the year 2015, at the rate that we are spending right now, our gross domestic product, our deficit will be equal to 82% of our annual gross domestic product. We have a spending nightmare on our hands. And I think about how we arrived at this point, and I think about a lot of this has to do with a fundamental misunderstanding about who we are, why we're here, and what we're all about. Everybody is familiar with the Statue of Liberty, Lady Liberty. I want to tell you about the Shroud of Liberty. tonight. If you're familiar with the story, there was a French representative, a Republican in France after the French Revolution, and looking back on his history, that looked across the pond, looked at America and said, there's something that the founders of this country realized, not about America, but about human dynamics and the best way to govern oneself and the best way for a people to be governed. And it was based on an understanding of human relational dynamics. Eduardo Laboulaye, who was a French representative, said, I want a gift. I want to give a gift from the people of France to the people of America. It wasn't a gift from the government of France to the government of America. It was from the people of France to the people of America that reminds them of who they are. Because as he looked across the landscape of the country, he realized this country doesn't know itself as well as the French do. Well, or as well as I do anyway, and he would be right in thinking such because he saw how you get it wrong from the French Revolution. And so he came up with a concept for a statue, and he started talking with architects, and the French people started raising the money to put this statue in place. When they finally got it up, they did not have a motto for it. A couple of years later, it was supposed to be commissioned as the centennial gift for America's centennial celebration, 1787, when our Constitution was signed into law. It was 1887 when this was supposed to be given to us. They missed it because of the fundraising aspect of things. But it didn't have a label. A couple of years later, a Jewish immigrant poet named Emma Lazarus comes along, and she is commissioned to write a poem to put the significance on the Statue of Liberty. She writes a poem, and it's a poem that we know and love, where it says, bring me your tired, bring me your wounded, bring me those longing to be set free. And that's been immortalized in her poem. She looked out across the harbor and she said, this is America. It is inviting the world to liberty. And everybody got a great feeling inside, a romantic kind of notion. The problem was that was the exact opposite of what Eduardo Laboulaye saw. It turns out that liberty does not invite the world to her shores. Liberty and the system of government that our founders recognized invites the world. Liberty enlightens the world. That was the message that Eduardo Laboulaye was trying to set forth. And it turns out that we came so close to getting it right. And we threw a sheet over the statue. We had a shroud of liberty. And we walked away from the full significance of what it's really all about. Well, one thing we're going to try to do tonight is rip the sheet off the statue. We're about to put the significance back on the statue. In order to do that, we need to understand some things about our Declaration of Independence and our Constitution. I want to go back to the basics. Our Declaration of Independence, if you want to think about it in these terms, and by the way, you don't have the handouts for the two sessions I'm going to give tonight. They're on the website, wethepeoplerevolution.com. We're going to put the video up, portions of the video up as well, and we'll have your email addresses, so we'll send the notes to you at the end of the evening. So just take notes.